Hey everybody, Steve here. So it's officially September. We're all back at school. Everyone's all excited. And I have a feeling that there's a few of you out there who might be going to music school for either the first year or maybe the second or third or whatever. I can remember my first year in music school, that weird mix of nervousness and excitement that you got from not knowing what to expect. And overall, I have great memories of my time there, some things that I'll never forget, and then a few that I really wish that I could. So now that I'm a bit more grown up, I find myself on sort of the other side of the equation, doing a lot more teaching and advocating for things like live music and music education. And I find a lot of the people I talk to, especially students, have what I think is sort of a wrong view on what music school is, like what it's for and what they can expect to get out of their time there. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. I want to give my opinion on what music school is really for and give some advice on how to get the most out of your time there. So first of all, let's talk about some of the main reasons why people would want to go to music school in the first place. And in my experience, I've heard a few different explanations, but they can basically be boiled down to one of two things. The first one is they want to get better at music. And this could be anything from a specific instrument, or it could be composition or even music production. And the second one is they want to be able to make a living playing music. There could be a third one that's something more like they don't know what else to do, but we'll leave that one aside for the time being. For me personally, that first one is totally legit. No problems with it at all. People will point out to you that you don't have to go to music school in order to get really good at music. There's a lot of other ways, like private study or internships, for example. You'll also hear a lot of noise these days, especially online, about how any liberal arts degree is essentially worthless. But the idea of formal musical training, at least in some form, goes back thousands of years, and it's really been instrumental in the continued development of the human race. So in my opinion, you can just ignore anyone who makes this argument, because they clearly have no idea what they're talking about. And in essence, music school is one valid way of many to get really good at music. It's that second one that I really have a problem with, this idea that studying anything in post-secondary, not even just music, will guarantee you a job after graduation. And if you're younger, if you're in your teens or early 20s, this idea that going to college or university will guarantee you a job has probably been thoroughly debunked for you at this point. But when I was first going to music school, it was still widely believed, I think. Little did I know at the time that musicians were way ahead of the curve on this one. We were unable to get jobs after graduation way before everyone else was doing it. The problem with this idea that going to music school will land you a job in the industry after graduation is, in my opinion, this is not what music school is for. They're not there to prepare you for a job. They're there to convert you from someone who plays music into a professional musician. And there's a really big difference between those things. And note that I didn't say amateur musician. I said someone who plays music, mostly because I don't like the implications behind the word amateur. I think that everyone should have some musical ability and be able to express themselves musically. And calling someone an amateur because they don't have the same level of education that I do doesn't sit right with me. So you might ask, what is a professional? And I think a lot of people would define it as someone who's really good at something and gets paid to do it. But trust me, there's a ton of people out there who aren't that good in their field, but still get paid way too much to do their job. So that's probably not a good measure. And in my opinion, the word professional is kind of meaningless as a catch-all term, because it almost always means something really specific in every different industry. So for example, you would never call someone a professional doctor. You would just call them a doctor. Same goes for lawyer or dentist. You would never call a pilot a professional pilot. You would distinguish them maybe as a commercial pilot or as a pilot instructor, because those words have very specific meanings in that industry. And the same thing goes for music. Now, in music, in my opinion, the word professional does have a specific meaning, although I don't really know if there's a consensus across the whole industry on this. So what I'm about to say you might disagree with, but I'm going to give my opinion on what I think a professional is. So number one, a professional needs to be competent on their instrument. Now notice I said competent and not virtuosic. You don't have to be the best player in your city or country in order to be a professional, but you do need to have some sort of deep understanding of either your instrument or of music in general if you're going to work on the production side of things. This includes, by the way, being able to know a lot about other styles of music, especially ones that you maybe don't run into in your day-to-day life. The point is for you to be versatile and be able to fit in a lot of different situations. The second thing is being fluent in the language of music, meaning music theory. This is a big one I don't hear people talk about a lot, and I get a lot of questions from people learning music about why they have to learn so much about music theory in order to be a good musician. And in my opinion, this is really the reason why. If you're a professional, you need to be able to communicate musical concepts both to other professionals and possibly to people who don't have the same level of understanding as you do. And as the old saying goes, if you can't communicate something simply, you probably don't understand it well enough. Music theory is the language that musicians use in order to communicate with each other. So for example, if you're a guitar player and you want to work with a drummer, you better know the difference between a 3/4 groove and a 12/8 groove, or whether you need a swing beat or maybe a Purdy shuffle. If you're going to work with or write for horns, you need to know about ranges and all the different articulations like falls and doits. If you're a vocalist, you need to know about chord structure so you can yell at your piano player when he plays the wrong voicing. All stuff like this. This is how professionals communicate musical concepts to each other. The third thing is professional etiquette, meaning someone who knows how to behave appropriately in the industry and work with others. If your goal is to make a living playing music, you are never going to be able to do that if you consistently break some of the unwritten rules of the music industry. For the music industry, this would be things like being punctual, so not always showing up an hour late to rehearsals or gigs. Dressing appropriately for the occasion, whether it's a gig or a session or a lesson even. Treating other people in the industry with respect and acting appropriately to your peers. And finally, being able to give and take constructive criticism. You have to get used to being told that what you're playing isn't working for somebody else, because believe me, it is going to happen. Now, I'll be honest here, some of these things you only learn from failing to do them at least once. I've been fired from bands and projects before, almost always due to my own actions, so I am speaking from experience here. But music school will make you better at all this stuff, mostly because you're going to be subjected to it nonstop for a couple years, especially if you get out there and play and deal with as many musicians as you can. You're not going to learn nearly as much sitting in your bedroom running scales as you will hanging out with and jamming with musicians of really different backgrounds to your own. I get asked a lot about who are the best musicians that I play with, and I always have to explain that after a certain point, it becomes less about who's the best and more about who you get along with and who you can rely on. I would rather play with someone I know can play well and is also a good hang than my city's greatest musician who I don't know will respect a gig or even show up on time. To me, a professional is not only someone who can play the music, but someone who is reliable, respectful, and also has some enthusiasm for the project. And you don't have to be the best musician in the world to have those traits. So my advice for anyone who's in music school now or thinking about going in the future is be prepared to make these 3 things a huge priority. Number 1, practice your ass off. You're never going to get another experience like this in your whole life. So make the most of it and learn as much about your trade as you can. And yes, I said trade. Music school is closer to a trade school than any other kind of institution. I've always said that working musicians are closer to contractors and electricians than any other vocation. Number 2, learn as much as you can from both your professors and your fellow classmates. So ask questions, show up at events, go to the gigs of your professors and fellow students, and in general, try to be around as much music as you can. You're going to learn a lot through osmosis that you won't appreciate until years down the line. Trust me on this one. And number 3, try to enjoy yourself. Despite the really high stress environment, I have some amazing memories of my time in school, mostly about the great people that I got to meet and play with. And it's impossible to overstate how much that has influenced the person I've become now. I'd be really curious to hear about other people's memories of their time in music school, whether those memories are positive or if they would have maybe done something a little bit differently. So please leave a comment and do the like and subscribe thing as well. And maybe send this video to anyone you know who is also setting out on this journey. But thank you so much for watching and see you soon.